Hello, good evening. Thank you very much, Elena. I would first of all like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to close this conference. I believe that art can make a big contribution to the debate of this conference, because art is an autonomous way of getting to know things. It is not demonstrable scientifically, but it gets us closer to truth through beauty. Beauty has a capacity, because it activates our consciousness, which is sometimes dormant because of the effect of practical reasoning, and it takes us to fascinating places. And artists normally question appearances and conventions. A matter that is very important for art, or which has always been very important for artists, is life. And not just life, but also the meaning of life. And a specific way of a specific mode of inquiry for artists is the eyesight, their eyesight. Artists can have an inkling of into what is eternal versus what is ephemeral, and they have a capacity to materialize what is invisible. There's many examples of in history of art, in contemporary history of art, and the Romantics at the end of the 18th century or the beginning of the 19th century. We've seen demonstrations of how an image, through that surprising beauty, invites us to make a personal reflection about things like one's own existence. A traveler contemplating that sea of clouds of Friedrich that leads us to that category of what is sublime, that beauty, which was so important for Romantics. Or a writer such as Mary Shelley also spoke, and she depicted the beauty of the terrible, like with Frankenstein, as an allegory of the arrogance of science, how, all of these things are played out. And later, as a clear sequel to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, we see 2001 by Kubrick, when that Homo sapiens, with that wonderful sequence of that hominid hitting the ground with a bone, and then that bone becoming a spacecraft. And this shows us that man has evolved, but, it was a disaster as compared with the Frankenstein designed by Kubrick for 2001. So we were very lucky, and we are very lucky, to have a work of art which is not a performance. At its origin, it was a performance because we thought that it could be interpreted outside, but, it's a good thing we didn't because of the rain. But because of reasons that Javier might want to explain, it became a video art piece. We are very lucky to have a wonderful contemporary artist such as Javier Viver. I will introduce Javier. He's a good friend of mine and a good friend of the university. So Javier, I will try and make a summary of his resume because, otherwise I could spend hours on end talking about his feats. But he is well known in Spain and abroad. He has a very long list of individual exhibitions conducted in his honor. He's going to present to us a very mysterious and disquieting piece, orally, he says he's an imaginer in a world which is sometimes a little bit iconoclastic, but he can materialize what is invisible. And as any contemporary artist, he's not just a fan of oil painting or sculpture. He has a capacity to use different disciplines depending on the message he wants to convey. And I want to mention something textual. He says, art for me is a service of communication and a service of communion, which is very, very accurate. And we are here to introduce a work of art, and Javier had some doubts, and he confessed those doubts. So, because he said, well, shall I talk about the work of art before people see it or after people see it? No, I think it should be done before, because in a world where there's so many images, and a world where images have lost their symbolic connotation, contemplation has been lost. And to contemplate something successfully requires knowledge of certain very basic cultural codes, which people keep forgetting about. The proposal that we are putting forward from this university has to do with beauty, and beauty should be enjoyed not just in museums, but also in other venues, such as a university. So it's not just an idea of contemplating things to understand them, because perhaps you don't know how to contemplate, and then you wouldn't understand anything. So the idea is to understand something to be able to contemplate it. And it's not a question of explaining the work of art, which would be absurd, but it is very important to understand certain clues, because the aesthetic experience is an existential experience. It's an experience with our own selves on the basis of what an artist proposes. This artist has traveled to a distant place, which is very surprising and very amazing, which really makes us meet our own selves. We know that we are confronted with an artist because he makes us feel an artist. This is what Coleridge said. And in my case, I have, in many cases, lived through this with Javier, and I can tell you that this piece that he's going to show us is really magnificent. And I will give you the floor, Javier. Thank you very much, Pablo, and thank you very much to the university for giving me this opportunity and to bring this conference to its end on a very interesting topics such as transhumanism. I will try and make a few comments about the piece, because I think it would be like destroying the mystery that it may present with. And I would like you to watch this piece It's a highly contemplative piece on a project, as Pablo said, which is called Aurelia Immortal. It's the case of a species, a mysterious species, quite a peculiar species. I'm not going to give you too many data. You will discover everything in the video. And I organized 2 exhibitions on it, one in the University of Navarre, and then it was exhibited in the Cervantes Institute in Alcalá of Henares. And there were a series of artistic elements, and that was also the origin of the piece we are going to be watching now, which is really a premiere, because it is based on a collaboration with a group called Tartar Elena. This is 2 voices, 2 vocalists who sing a cappella with some electronic music arrangements. They're both very young, but they're having a huge success. And I was struck about the music, because I think that it can fit in very well with all this background of transhumanism. These are pieces that they sing. It's 2 girls. They sing music in the Mediterranean area. They normally rescue archaic pieces For example, the first piece is titled Tota Pulchra. It is a religious piece that speaks about the Virgin Mary as the Immaculate. And I was struck at the fact that there was that huge difference with respect to transhumanism. A huge difference, but which at the same time, it is a kind of radical relationship, because the Virgin Mary is completely clean with no sin at all, and these are things that keep coming up in transhumanism. And many of these topics have been mentioned in the last few days. For example, eugenesia. And we have heard people talk about transhumanism, and I think that everything that is being raised at this conference, or everything that has been raised at this conference, well, many of the things raised by transhumanism, many of the things raised by them are archaic. They are very old as the hills. They were in traditional philosophy, and in the past they were lived with great intensity and with more realism than today. I think that transhumanism has a highly materialistic approach to all of these things, and sometimes they discuss them on a slightly superficial plane. This is a kind of chimera. What we're living through now is a kind of chimera, kind of attempt. So I was very much struck. I was very much attracted to the idea of incorporating this type of transcending music, sublime music even, integrated with a topic that touches on such powerful topics such as transhumanism. And that is precisely the aspect that I think is the most interesting about the video, which is this collaboration with these two singers, and the text, the poem, and the images. I think that I should leave you to it so that you can watch it, and so that I don't spill the beans, right? So, thank you very much for your kind attention, and I hope you like it.